Everybody, welcome to Leon's Chainsaw Parts and Repair. Today we're going to take a look at another Tillotson HL carburetor that I don't believe I've ever done a standalone video on, and certainly not in this higher resolution. It is the Tillotson HL-46B. Now this came off of that Zip A that I parted out, and I don't even know if that video is up yet, to be perfectly honest, but I parted a Zip A out that was in really rough shape and a lot of missing parts. That was more than anything, a lot of missing parts. What was there is good, including this carb, at least I sure think so. We're going to get into it and take a peek. So the Zip, the 600D, and some models of Whiz would have used this carb, and then they switched over to what I want to say an HL-104. Would this fit on some of those newer models? Yeah, I don't see any reason why it wouldn't. You might have to fiddle around with the governor spring. But this is one of those where the throttle defaults to the open position. A lot of folks don't realize that on that style of saw, when you're pulling the trigger, you're actually releasing spring tension, and the trigger is fully out. It's pulling it shut. Okay? Fun little fact. Let's get into this thing and see what it needs, besides a full rebuild. Alright, for starters, let's go ahead and see if we can get this old hose off without causing any damage to that plastic fuel turret. I don't know if I went deep enough with that or not. Doesn't look like it. The trick is I really don't want to score a line in that plastic or nylon or Bakelite, whatever the heck you want to call it. If I can avoid it, I don't want to do that. There we go. Come on. Okay. Actually, I think I succeeded. Yeah, fuel hose shouldn't be that stiff. Alright. Let's get into it. I'm going to go ahead and take this governor or throttle return spring, whatever this is functioning as at the moment, off. It's been abused over the years. See if I get that to focus. There we go. But it's still largely working, I think. There's only one way that this bracket can go on the carb. Well, no, I take that back. You probably could screw up and put it over here with the way the nub is. But there's only one place that it makes sense, and that's by the throttle shaft there. Oh, that's going to try and spin the screws all the way out. That means we got a stiff gasket under there in all likelihood. I ran this through the ultrasonic cleaner, so we should find evidence of the cleaning solution in here. That's enough. Why don't you come apart? We're going to try and separate this one piece at a time. Oh, you hear how crusty that is? Hey, there's some of that cleaning solution. Alright. Huh. Not as nasty as I would have thought it would be, but that one's all distorted. I'm not gonna not replace it. Let's put it that way. That would be silly. I want to leave the turret in place for now. Man, that actually came off without leaving hardly any gasket residue on it. Very little. blow that out before we put it back together and get anything that's in the fuel screen out. We may have to take that apart if it leaks. We'll see. Alright, now I'm going to pop the rest of this off. Guess right there is the easiest place to pry. Alright. Oh, that is rock hard. Yeah, that wouldn't have pumped any fuel. Okay. That level of yuckiness is not from its trip through the ultrasonic cleaner. That is crap that was in here before. So that's kind of gross. Actually, that's not kind of gross. That's really gross. Alright, I'm going to blow that out a little bit. And I don't know why I'm bothering. Because we're going to have to take this reed plate off. In order to get the axle pin, which is a screw, to come out, we got to have that separated. So that's a tight fit any day of the week for a standard 7/16 wrench. So my hope is that I can get the nut off of the lock washer and spin it with my finger, which mostly worked on that side. Try it again. I don't want to damage that throttle shaft. Okay. There we go. Now we can get to everything. And we can blow that out. See, that's that screw head right there. In order to get this axle shaft out for the inlet lever, we need to clean the needle seat up. And if I'm gonna, yeah, this is a gravity. It's adjusted kind of weird too. This is a gravity needle. Doesn't have an attachment to the metering arm. Probably is a retrofit kit. In fact, I'm certain there is. But they actually work okay when you get all the junk out. Alright, so you see I'm holding my thumb down there. Pull that out carefully. There's our spring. The arm. The needle is stuck in place. This is an ugly carb. My God. That is really ugly. Okay. I'll let that soak for a little bit while I clean up some of these other parts. And when we come back, we'll pull the seat out so that we can clean that appropriately. That seat is going to have, this needle is all aluminum, so there's a little gasket in that seat that we're going to clean as well. It's a rubber seal that would seal to. This is definitely one of the rougher carbs that I've had to look at. And this might even be an occasion to pull, yeah, you know what, for grins, we'll pull the adjustment needles and we'll blow some cleaner through there too. But we're going to keep track of where these go, just in case they aren't the same. Or they are the same and they aren't. That depth is going to be way too much. But even that needle has some residual. Nasty. As nasty as this is, if it hadn't run through the ultrasonic cleaner, I can only imagine just how nasty it would be. Actually, those are almost identical. The only way to tell the difference is the taper. And the high side tapers quicker than the low side. That's abnormal. Okay. Yes, I'm doing that slow so that I don't blow it up in my face. Alright, we'll let this soak. I'll get some stuff cleaned up and we will come back. Okay, so I've cleaned everything pretty well. This can still use a little bit of work in here, but I want to go ahead and get this seat out because there's some deposits around here that I'd like to clean up at the same time. You need a thin wall 5/16 socket in order to get that seat out of there. The thick wall impact socket will not fit in there. Hey, you're supposed to click in. Okay. And even with all of that, there is still residual yuck in there. Watch. Like that. So there's that rubber seat I was talking about. If that gets too hard, it won't seal. And we'll have to replace the whole seat. But I'm hoping we don't have to do that because these aren't growing on trees. Okay, so while that's still wet, I'm going to take one of our cleaning swabs. And I'll even do it by hand, and we'll see what we come up with. See that? That is enough to cause it to not seal. So hopefully that's not just the rubber breaking down. Hopefully that's the residual gasoline and oil mix coming off so that we will once again have a good sealing surface. Okay, see, that came out almost clean. I'm willing to take a risk on that. Now, there's a copper sealing washer down in there. I'm not going to dig that out. Sometimes they come out, sometimes they don't. And all I'm going to do is use the cleaner end of the swab to see if I can make it shine. Yep, there we go. Alright, so some of those crusties that are in there are best done through good old-fashioned scraping. And then rinse it and then blow it. And the rinse is, of course, brake clean. You want to get as much of this trash out of here as you possibly can, because the gasoline and the new fuel mix will eventually dissolve it. Actually, I threw that away a little too soon. We'll use it a little bit more. And once it dissolves, then it's running through your carb and in through your engine. Do I know how hard those deposits really are? No. But if I've taken all the time to clean up an old zip or something, I don't want to risk it getting taken out because of contamination in the fuel. Alright. One more thing we're going to do. This is your fuel passage. When this all stacks together, and yes, I'm missing parts, fuel comes in, it travels up through here, and then the needle drops and it comes out right there. So to clean that passage out, we need to blow through there. And I just blew the washer out, see that? And that's okay, because now I can wipe both sides of the washer. And you can see that one side has a little bit of staining. That's where the rubber was hitting. So we'll put it back the same way. All right, I'm going to go to the air hose and blow this out thoroughly. Okay. That is probably about as good as we are going to get. So I blew through here, that fuel passage, blew the throat out obviously, but I also carefully blew through the high and low speed. And there are O-rings in there to seal those needles up, so be careful you don't accidentally blow them out. Alright, these needles have a slight coating of rust on them. I don't like that. Okay. My wire wheel is a soft one and it's heavily worn out, which is perfect for me because it allows me to do stuff like this, and if I just lightly touch a part to it, I'm not actually taking metal off. Because you obviously don't want to release or damage a needle by doing that. At least I think it's obvious that you don't want to do that. Okay. Now we're going to drop our gasket back in. Make sure it lays flat in there. We'll see if this needle and seat are still good. You always want to start it by hand, because if you cross thread that and strip it, well, guess what? Your carburetor's done. And that's all it takes right there. Does not have to be torqued to the moon. Okay. We are going to put together the inlet needle system. Again, the needle just drops in. It's not connected to anything. And you want to test, like what I'm doing right there. If everything's clean, this thing should want to fall right out. If it doesn't, it's not clean enough, or there's something wrong. Alright, I'm not going to fiddle with the spring. I'm going to assume that it's still the right tension until I have reason to believe otherwise. Line that up. Slip this axle in from the back here and get it through the arm and then tighten it down. What sucks is you can't test any of this until you get it together. So don't be upset or annoyed if you have to take one apart a few times. That is the nature of the beast. Alright. Now something's wrong there. That's sitting too low. This should be level with the chamber floor. And I'm not having a whole lot of luck bending it. I'm trying to be subtle here. And subtle's not working. I got a little, there we go, I got a little bit. Okay. I can hear it rattling in there. That's a good sign. We'll go with that for now. So we're going to put it back together using one of my Oregon kits. If you remember, I think I did a comparo of a bunch of these. And yeah, I've got to use them up. Okay, so like I say, there's no way to test this to see if that lever's too high, too low. No bueno. You just got to put it together and hope for the best. Remember, gasket down first, then diaphragm on this side, and then you immediately reverse it for this side. That's not right. Why am I doing that? What's the deal here? There we go. Gasket first, and then diaphragm. There's only one way that they'll go on right. Okay. So it goes back together pretty damn fast. Now this is for that throttle return spring governor, so we're going to put it down before we have an opportunity to put it in the wrong spot. Then we will pressure test it and see if this is leaking. I'm almost certain that it will. And I'm not impressed with the cork aftermarket gaskets. They leak like a sieve. Most of the time I replace them with a rubber that also serves as a replacement fuel cap gasket. It's tight going in, but it works really stinking well. But we'll see if we need to go there. I'm just getting these all snug before we go back and tighten them down. Alright, other than that puppy pad being soaked with brake cleaner that's sticking to my plexiglass cover on this, I have not thought that process out as well as I probably should have. But we are ready to pressure test this carb, and let's hope it doesn't leak like a sieve. Come on, baby. Okay. Oh, look at that. That's actually pretty good for one of these. Let's find out where she is leaking. Not there. Okay, I'm going to say there's actually just a tiny little bit of leakage at the seat. But that is slow enough that I don't honestly care. I know this gauge face is all jacked up, but we started at 7, and it's still at 4. Just slowly creeping down. Wonder how high I can make it go. Yeah, see, there's a spring released it. Let's see when it stops. Ah. So that would represent overpressurized. Yeah. Actually getting a little bit worse. So what we're going to do is we're going to try something. I'm going to try pushing a little bit of fuel through there. Well, I don't know how much actually got in there, all that screwing around. There we go. She settled right back down. Look at that. I'm happy with this. With how bad that carb looked on the inside, I am completely happy with this. I mean, that is the old diaphragm. I don't even want to look at that. Yeah, look at that. That is perfectly acceptable. And that's why I didn't pop that cover when you have a good seal. You don't want to release it if you don't have to. And you can clean it. Alright, there you go, folks. That is a rebuild kit on a Tillotson HL-46B. So if that seat had been bad, you'd go to the Carburetor IPL. I've got it posted on the web, on my website. Find that part number and start looking for it. They're out there. They pop up still fairly regularly, but they're not growing on trees, and that is part of why, if I don't have to replace it, I'm not going to. So, to each their own on that. There you go. That's the service. Hope this helped. We'll catch you guys on the next one.